Tell him, McCluskey. Tell him what time it is.
Little Hen says it's time to rock and roll.
All you people are so scared of me.
Come quietly or there will be trouble.
Man, that's just me.
I'm Batman.
This is Sparta!
There is a tiger in the bathroom!
I'm an excellent driver.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
Pop quiz, hotshot.
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
You know, in the future, if you're gonna steal cars, don't dress like a car thief, man.
What are you? You a cop?
Really? You seriously think I'm a cop? Cop in a skin-tight red and blue suit, you know you're...
Hello and welcome to this week's Monday Movie Show. We're back to a Sunday.
Yep.
That's actually... It's the sequel. It's the Monday Movie Show : We're back to a Sunday.
What are we going to call the next one we're on a Sunday then? Because we can't call the same thing. A sequel doesn't have the exact same title. Or
yeah, I know.
Back to a Sunday again.
Yeah, well, the Saw series used all of that stuff up until the last one when it was only called Saw 3D. So they never had subtitles for any of their films. So they got away with 6 up until the 7th. So it gives us time to think of the 7th one then, if that's the case. Anyway, I'm Stuart.
I'm Andrew.
And we're here to review films. Not to jabber on about films, but we're here to review films. And this week in the cinema section, we're looking at these movies.
We have comedy with Let's Be Cops. We have horror with As Above, So Below. We have Disney with... I just say Disney because that is a whole category on its own. $1 Million Arm. And we also have a movie called... I've got it written down here, although it's as Night Moves. But, sorry, it's Night Moves.
Night Moves. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Just meld it all together. And also in the home release section, we've only got a few films this week because there's one big movie and the rest are just too scared to get released alongside it. So we're looking at these.
As you heard in the opening clips there, Amazing Spider-Man. So we have, of course, Amazing Spider-Man 2. And then we have a couple smaller films with Last Love with Michael Caine. And also you have a Spanish horror film in Painless.
Of sorts. A Spanish horror film of sorts. Make sure you check out our website, mondaymovieshow.co.uk. Get us on Facebook at facebook.com/Monday Movie Show. Put my teeth back in.
Sure,
exactly.
Yes.
On Twitter, at Monday Movie Show. You can email us, mondaymovieshow@yahoo.com. In the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, you'll see the live chat. Make sure you click on that and actually speak to a few people and become followers of us because we're on 476 followers, so it'd be nice to be on 500 by the end of the year.
Would be nice. It'd be nice to be on 1,000 by the end of the year. Really.
That's not going to happen.
If we can finally figure out how to get back on iTunes.
Maybe. I would do something really extreme if we get 1,000 followers by the end of the year, so that's not going to happen.
Oh, can we get that in writing, please, Mr. Miller?
Yes, we can, Mr. Hazel. Right, let's kick things off with some movie news.
I don't have any, so of course it's all you this week.
That's why I went silent, because you didn't do your homework. It is like homework, isn't it?
I had to look, but I just really... There was nothing that I can remember standing out, or... Because I look, but I don't look every day. So sometimes, admittedly, if there's something happens, I do miss it, and I don't get note of it. But there's probably something you'll start saying, like, oh, yeah, I remember that. Why didn't I have it written down?
Do you know when I call it my movie news? Because we normally supposedly have the show live on a Monday night. And in this case, we're on Sunday, so I always get my news together the day before. Mm-hmm. That's when I get mine. I never actually write it down as soon as I see it during the week. So I actually do use a pen and a piece of paper. I'm old style in that case. But I have tons of paper from notes from the show. But movie news-wise, it has been a lacklustre week. You have to agree with that. It's because it's been bank holiday in the UK. So we get very little movie news normally in a week when it is a bank holiday. And good is the fact that there is no big casualties to announce. There is no big stars that have decided to pass away this week. So
yes, fortunately.
That's good, but these 3 pieces of news aren't that big, but it's the only thing I could find. According to Lakeshore Entertainment, they are developing a reboot to the Underworld franchise. Corey Goodman will pen the script. It's unknown in what direction the project will go.
I'm one of the people who quite enjoyed the Underworld franchise. I know they're quite terrible in parts, but there's parts of them and things of them that I do enjoy and I quite like. And I liked even parts of the last one, and it set up for more things to happen. So I'm a bit disappointed with that, because I would have liked to see where they were going to go with this whole... Because the whole thing with the Underworld films was that there was the humans and then there was vampires and werewolves, and humans weren't aware of vampires and werewolves. And then in the last film, they changed all that so that it was people were aware of vampires and werewolves, and yet then it's been left off that you don't know what's happening with that. So I would like to explore that more.
Yeah. To be honest, I hated the series after the second one. This is my bread and butter. I love this kind of thing. Vampires, werewolves, everything like this. I love that kind of stuff. And with Underworld Rise of the Lycans, it was a prequel, and they decided to go with Rona Mitra instead of Kate Beckinsale in the role. And I thought the film itself was terrible. And I was wondering where they were going to go with that, if they could actually make it better. And when hearing that Kate Beckinsale was going to return to the series with Underworld Awakening, finally they might have actually gone back to the decentness of Rise of the Lycans. And the first one, yeah, that wasn't the case because they managed to outdo themselves in the terrible factor. Because Underworld Awakening, I think, is the worst out of the four, even though Rise of the Lycans is not very good. Awakening just bombarded you with nothing but CGI. So what I want them to do is, with this being a reboot of the series, they're obviously going to go with a different actress. Don't go with Kate Beckinsale. Don't go with Rona Mitra. They need to go with somebody else. Please at least attempt to go with some practical effects in the film. Because if you look at movies like Dog Soldiers, even American Werewolf in London, you still look at the transformation in American Werewolf in London, and it is very impressive. Because it was practical effects. In Dog Soldiers, that's the case with Dog Soldiers. It's practical effects, and I think practical effects adds more of a scare to it because it adds more of a believability to it, rather than seeing somebody who is just normal on screen and then they use green screen to change them into a CGI rampant beast. It just doesn't add the believability to the film for me. So I really hope that they are going to go back to practical, but they're not going to.
Yeah, don't go with CG blood. I know they basically make a film without CG blood so they can with CG blood they make a film without using practical blood so they can go, you know what, we might make this a PG-13 film or 12A film to get the lower rating, but then they go, no, they wimp out, they go, no, we're going to do the adult rated version, and they just add loads of fake blood. So, but the fake blood looks horrible. I mean, just look at the 300 sequel for that; it looked terrible.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's Menace in the live chat. Arcane, he just says, yeah, same here, because he agrees with me, the fact that it doesn't need to be CGI, and I completely agree with you as well. I hate CGI blood. It's one of my pet peeves in a horror film. My other one, and the thing that I can't stand, is when you get a dubbed film. So instead of it actually having subtitles, you get an English dub track over the top. I really hate that. But CGI blood in horror movies is, I can't in any movie, I can't stand it. Right, the next piece of news is Steve Carell is being tipped to star in a live-action Looney Tunes spin-off. The film will be a mixture of live-action and CGI and explore the Looney Tunes fictional Acme Corp. None of the Looney Tunes characters are expected to appear in the movie, which is strange.
Maybe they don't have the rights to them anymore.
Warner Brothers should be doing this, so Warner Brothers should still have the rights to the Looney Tunes characters.
But didn't they already try and do a Looney Tunes thing with Brendan Fraser in it, which was quite disastrous?
Yeah, that is the case.
Was it Looney Tunes Back in Action? That was what it's called.
Something like that, yeah. So it's just, it's silence. Do we care?
Sorry, I was just looking at the tumbleweed going past.
That wasn't a tumbleweed, that was Speedy Gonzales. Speeding past. Yeah, we don't care. We just don't care. Final piece of news is, according to the Daily News, Wesley Snipes will return for a fourth in the Blade series. It was rumoured that Snipes was going to return to the series, however, things went quiet. However, it now looks as though that New Line is eager to get the fourth film off their up and running.
I have no problem with this because I quite like the Blade character, and the whole thing with the comics now, it should be something that would do quite well. But it's a question of who owns the rights now, because New Line saying they're still good at it. Well, presumably nothing's been done with the Blade character for some time, that the rights, because it basically the way that the rights normally work, especially with Marvel films and everything else, how they've been with like 20th Century Fox with X-Men and stuff like that, and Spider-Man with Sony, is that if they don't make a film or start production on a film within a certain time, then the rights lapse back to Marvel. So with this, I'm not sure who'll have the rights, if it will actually be New Line still, or if it will be Marvel that has the rights. Either way, I'm looking forward to this though, if they do it properly. Not so much if it's going to be New Line, but Marvel, because Marvel really can't put a foot wrong at the moment with their films. I would love to see another one with Wesley Snipes as Blade, because he was really good in the role, and I like all three of them. Third one is really weak though. Second one is really not great, but it's enjoyable. The first one I really do love, but the effects let it down because it was pushing sort of the limits of what it could do. So I'm looking forward to them doing a fourth one, but they've got to get the right elements, get a good story, get it all right, and then don't hand it off to someone like Brett Ratner. Despite his recent performance with things like Hercules, give it to a director who has got style and flair, because it's what it needs.
Yeah, speaking about Brett Ratner, you just brought him up there. He's supposedly getting sued by a cast member off the set of Hercules where he got hurt, and so he's suing Brett Ratner. Just interesting. But I'm sort of in agreement with you. I do like the Blade series. I really like the first one. I actually like the second one as well.
Yeah, well, the second one has got one of, you know, you get these films that have moments, but then there has really great moments. There's a fight on screen which is a really quite brutal fight. Really like it, except for some CG usage which is quite bad. But it's like one of these great film fights on screen, and it's from from the second Blade film, which was Guillermo del Toro as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, I didn't like Blade Trinity that much. Even though it's actually Ryan Reynolds in the film is not too bad, surprisingly. Yeah. He's annoying, but he's not too bad. And they were supposedly going to hand the torch off to his character and make it like a spin-off type film.
Yeah, were they called Nightcrawlers? No, something like that. Yeah, something like that. Anyway, of Hannibal Caine, was a bit much, but it was kind of one of the things that did make the third one enjoyable.
Yeah, so fourth one, Wesley Snipes might be a bit too old to do the stuff that Blade has done in the first three films. You've seen him in, when we get to the top 10, he's in the film that's at number 10, and he doesn't have a lot of over-the-top action set pieces to do, and Blade is his movement with him being a vampire. He needs that movement then. I don't know if Wesley Snipes can handle that. Yeah,
well, I mean, it would be a good way to do it as a proper handoff to a successor sort of thing, and do it that way properly, because of the fact, to address the fact that even though he is part vampire, part human, he does age, and they addressed that. They mentioned in the first films he does age, so it would be a good way to sort of maybe do a passing of the torch to a new Blade, but not necessarily a new team, as that didn't quite work in the last one. So that's an option, and it would be something to address, because it's been set up there with that possibility. Blade could become, the new Whistler character.
Could. Blade Trinity, would you believe it, is 10 years old. Came out in 2004. 10 years ago when Blade Trinity came out. The first film was out in 1998. So that is actually older than I thought.
Feeling old.
I know. Well, I wouldn't actually agree with you, Kat, in there. Is Wesley Snipes getting back to Blade since he excelled in Gallowalkers? Gallowalkers is not a good film at all. It's a terrible movie, so...
She loves to wind you up about that. She keeps saying about buying it for you and sending it to you as a present.
Yeah, I didn't like Gallowalkers at all. So, as a matter of fact, we'll get onto the top 10 now, because I liked him more so in this film at number 10 than I did Gallowalkers.
Yeah, so you've just said at number 10, The Expendables 3.
Yeah, which I did actually like him more so in that than I did in Gallowalkers, considering if you collate his screen time, it's about 10 minutes in The Expendables 3. Maybe it's 15 if you're pushing it a little bit. But
I think maybe more to 15 to 20.
So, but he's much better in that, and I know you were being sarcastic, but it's still Gallowalkers. No, Expendables 3. I think it's the best out of the three. I know you think that's completely opposite.
Yeah.
I even though I hate the series anyway, I don't like the series, to be honest. But I wasn't as bored with this one as I was with the other two, and so that's the reason why, in my opinion, it's the best out of the three. It's just not as boring as the other two. Even I was born in the 80s. I grew up on the 80s action films alongside horror films from the 80s, so I was a slight fan of the Schwarzenegger-Stallone movies of that era. And the first two films make you feel like you're watching a movie from the 80s. Just too much, though. Way too much.
I mean, I don't hate it, and I did enjoy it. I just didn't enjoy it as much as the other ones, and I felt it was very... It's the whole thing of the Expendables. The point of the Expendables is that they are old and aging and not really fit for it, but they're still doing it. And that's part of what I don't like about this one, especially the story where it goes of bringing in the new characters that are, you know, in their 20s. That doesn't fit with the series. It doesn't become the Expendables anymore. Then it changes, and that's where I have a problem with it too. So,
and they had to do that though because they couldn't use the same format for multiple films. They couldn't.
They could have brought in other characters that weren't in their 20s. Maybe go for people in their 30s and 40s, more around this. Because I mean, Jason Statham is in there. Jason Statham is not a has-been physically more like a lot of the other the actors from the first two Expendables films are. He's still of that age that he is not in his prime, but he's definitely in a better physical condition, I would say, than people like Stallone and Schwarzenegger. So I think they basically jumped the gun a bit. They went too far back. They should have gone back for people not as young as that, and it would have felt more people that were still a bit more established. They needed more people. I mean, they brought in Antonio Banderas, someone who's not normally established with action films. If they'd done more like his character, more people, more like him, actors or actresses that were of that level, but not necessarily established as being action films, then I would have disliked it less.
I think that they were slightly smarter by looking at what the crop of action stars now compared to if you do go for the middle-aged action stars. Because if you look at that category there, that area there, you can only go down the Statham route, pushing out, like you said, with Antonio Banderas. Who else could you add to that?
I'd have to think about it, but it just kind of felt like they were going, oh, forget everyone who made the Expendables what it was, the people who loved the films from the 80s. We're going to go for the new in crowd, and that's why we're going to go PG-13, 12A, and that was the whole thing of the issue of it for me. You know, I mean, they just basically went, oh, screw you, older people. We're going for the new younger demographic.
But they already actually catered for the older demographic in the first two, so they needed to change it. But we could be again here all night with this. So
yeah. Okay. Number 9 is the Secret Cinema release of Back to the Future.
Yeah, there for the fourth week now, I think it is. It's due its end run now, I think. So in next week's chart, it shouldn't be there because it's only there for like 4 weeks.
Is it not there? Is it not this week?
No,
it's last week. So
it's only there for 4 weeks, and that. So I think this is
the third week it's been in the chart. It started at 7. It started at 7. No, it started at 8, went to 7, and now it's at 9.
No, it was there another week as well.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was.
So it's been in the chart for 4 weeks. So yeah, it's due to actually come out of the chart.
Another special at number 8, which is the Doctor Who episode Deep Breath, the pilot of the 9th series, 10th series. I don't know. I've lost count now.
9th series,
Peter
13th
Capaldi
Doctor.
Series.
13th Doctor, I think he is. 12th or 13th Doctor. I know Saxon is probably screaming at us right now going, he's that number Doctor, but I think he's the 13th Doctor.
It is the 13th Doctor. I do remember that from the special.
Yeah, if you want to be complicated, he's technically the 14th or 12th, if you depend on how you look at it, but that's just for Whovians out there.
Stop being technical.
Sorry. I'll get even more technical when I review a film a little bit later on. But I'm sort of a Doctor Who fan. I do actually watch Doctor Who. I find it a very entertaining Saturday night programme. It's better than the other tripe that's on the opposite side to this programme.
Agreed.
Yeah, easily by far. However, I just felt like, considering that it was directed by Ben Wheatley, who is known for his very quirky kind of films. You look at Kill List, Down to a Field in England, and Sightseers. They're very strange movies. You would expect slightly more strangeness to happen with this, or a bit more maturity. Even though it's got a dinosaur in London, yeah, an interesting idea. It just felt like they never explored that theory very well.
I feel like that was very quickly dropped.
It was, because they didn't know how to actually take it.
Yeah.
Peter Capaldi, when he came on screen and during the episode, he reminded me a lot of Tom Baker. Tom Baker's eccentricities, the way he acted as a doctor, it reminds me a lot of Peter Capaldi. The fact that they have gone with a more aged doctor rather than going younger with what they did with Matt Smith is an interesting idea. I'll give him a chance because he's only into 2 episodes now. He's still got another 10 to go. And there are rumours that already he's only going to be in it for 1 series because supposedly he's had a fight with Stephen Moffat. We'll see if that's actually true. And if that's the case, he'll end up like Christopher Eccleston, who only managed to survive for 1 series as well. But it's a very slow start, in my opinion, with him being a new Doctor.
I'm sure you'll probably discuss it more in depth with Mark and the others from Following the Nerd on Thursday when you're there going through the top 10 there as well.
Probably.
Yeah. Going back though, the rest of the chart, thankfully, is all films. Number 7 with Dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, it's the second best summer blockbuster, in my opinion. We'll get on to the first best summer blockbuster a little bit later on, but it's brilliant. I really, really like that. Something that, surprisingly, me and Andrew actually agree on. Yeah,
it was really, really good. Although it is very... I think it's actually a bit... I actually think it should have been rated a 15. It's rated a 12A. I think it should have been a 15 because it's a very intense film.
No, I'll keep it with the 12 here, but it's pushing the 12 here to its limits.
Very, yeah. And number 6 is a new entry for What If, which I know you haven't seen, so I'm just going to go quickly through that, which is the one with Daniel Radcliffe and Zoe Kazdan as a romantic drama. Will they, won't they? But they can't because she's already got a boyfriend, sort of thing. And it's perfectly fine for that kind of thing, but it is rather melodramatic and humdrum and the average sort of thing. It doesn't really bring anything special to the table, and that's a shame because of the fact that Radcliffe's good in it. You have the other actor, Adam Sandberg, I think it is, I can't remember exactly, but who's also in that film. He has a moment in it where he's laughing, and he genuinely makes a few laughs. And the thing that's a shame with it is, as usual, the trailer has shown it to be a funny film. It's not. It's a romantic drama with funny bits in it. It's not a comedy, which is a shame because it would have been better, I think, as a comedy if they put more into it. Unfortunately, they haven't, and it's not. So at number 5 is new entry for Deliver Us from Evil.
Personally, I think it's Scott Derrickson's weakest film. The Exorcism of Emily Rose is actually on film 4 during the week. And I think Sinister is by far his best one. Sinister has got it's just wilt is a little bit in the middle, but it's still got a very interesting premise. The problem with Deliver Us from Evil is this wilt is more so in the middle. The middle is just very sagging. It just loses everything. The fact that it centers around a cop, and if you mix a cop movie with the paranormal movie, you need to be brave in how you go about it. And it starts off with an interesting premise, the fact that 3 soldiers have come back from Iraq after discovering a tomb and unleashing some kind of evil, and they've brought it back with them. And when you find out one of the cases involves a woman who's thrown a 2-year-old into a lion's pen, you get some interesting elements there, and the fact that she's possessed and the way you actually see her in the movie, including one of the jump scares which involves her, is the kind of thing that Scott Derrickson handles well. He doesn't handle the rest of the film very well. It felt like a by-the-numbers movie, even though I think he's got a lot of good ideas, and Sinister was an interesting way of taking a horror film and tried to do it a little bit differently. With this, it lacked scares, it lacked tension, and even though it was trying to build up some of that stuff, it just never actually managed to succeed.
I actually went and saw this one because I agreed that I would, so I don't like going to see horror films. I got to say, I didn't dislike it. I thought it was okay, enjoyable, even though I don't like horror and I didn't like the horror bits in it, the jumpy bits, because I don't like them. I really don't like cheap jumps, and I hate quick flashes of things on the screen. But I've got to say, it was very average and sort of okay for the beginning, but I did like there is an exorcism scene in the film which I thought was very well competently handled, and quite enjoyed the way it was done and presented. So for me, that scene, if that had been that scene for 25 minutes on its own, I would have gone, that was brilliant, liked it. But the rest of the film kind of drags it down a bit.
One of the loudest exorcism scenes ever.
Well, I've not seen any other. Thinking about it, I'm trying to think any other exorcism scenes I have seen. I've not really seen any I can think of come to mind.
Yeah, it's like they had multiple speakers in there and just turned them all up to 15 rather than 11. It was so loud. I'm surprised that nobody in the police station came to see what was going on, considering that there was windows breaking and just tables smashing off the ground and the noise.
I do have a question when it comes to that. How come the windows outside broke, but the reflective glass in the viewing room didn't break or crack or anything?
Special bulletproof, screen-proof glass. That's what it is.
Back to the UK box office top 10. At number 4, also a new entry this week, Into the Storm.
Yeah, it's rubbish. To be honest, it is rubbish. I went in with a complete open mind. I expected a movie that wasn't going to just be anything any special at all. I wasn't expecting it to be the level of Twister or disaster movies, because the disaster movies are the leave your brain at the door kind of films, and you expect to be entertained. I left my brain at the door. I think the usher must still have it somewhere, but I wasn't entertained.
Wait. Brain?
Yeah, brain.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't entertained, to be honest. I just felt the fact that they decided to go with a found footage style movie is a brave thing to do in the guise of a disaster film with a $60 million budget, but they just didn't explore it very well. The characters were annoying, and you just wanted the huge massive tornado to suck them up and just get rid of them in the first 5 minutes would have been nice, rather than you sitting there and wondering how's a small town like that got a giant airport, or how are they able to actually film all of this?
That is a good point of it. It's like, yeah, okay, it's a small little town, and there's a big, massive, international-looking airport that has filled with planes getting blown up into the sky. Number 3, still doing really well, both here and in the States, especially Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, it is the best summer blockbuster. It is the biggest summer blockbuster in the US, and it's the best summer blockbuster, so... It's I love the Guardians of the Galaxy, and I'm so glad they're releasing the Dancing Groot for Christmas. I am getting myself one. I've already promised somebody else that I'll be getting them one for Christmas. So yeah,
it's going to be the number. It's going to be the whole the Toy Story toys thing again with dancing Groots.
Yeah, and it's not going to be that expensive neither. They're only around about 10 quid.
There'll probably be like a little simple one, then there'll be like a really big deluxe special one that does everything.
I'll be buying both.
At number 2 is The In-Betweeners 2.
Yeah, 95% of the film is rubbish. The only time when the film is interesting is when the group are together. For the 5% of the film, that's when the film is okay, because then you don't have to put up with the amount of sex jokes. It just becomes really annoying.
That's it?
Yep.
Yeah. And believe it or not, there's actually taken more in the UK cinemas than Guardians of the Galaxy has, considering it's only been out a couple of weeks, and Guardians of the Galaxy's been out now for 5 weeks.
Which is really annoying.
Yeah. But the new entry at the top of the box office is Luc Besson's Lucy.
Yeah, it's taken $150 million worldwide so far. And in a way, it sort of deserves it, because it's not too bad. It's Luc Besson not producing a film. He's getting behind the camera again to direct the movie, and it's got his frenetic style. It's insane, to be honest. Scarlett Johansson, it's the third science fiction film that she's done this year alongside In the Skin, I was going to call it.
Under the Skin.
Under the Skin, yeah. And the other one is...
I can't remember now, actually. There was 3, yeah, but...
Earlier on...
Yeah,
this...
her.
Her.
She wasn't really in her. She was just voicing her.
It's still sci-fi elements into it, but... Lucy is a perfectly fine film, even though the idea of somebody unlocking 100% of the brain and what happens to them is a bit gaga cuckoo, but Luc Besson knows how to do insanity. He knows how to handle something that needs to move at 90 miles an hour to fit 90 minutes. At least he doesn't extend these movies to be 2.5 hours long. So it's fine. It's nice that it is below 90 minutes, including the 4-minute credits. It makes it even better. So it's enjoyable for the 90 minutes.
Yeah, and it's the film. We gave it Movie of the Week last week, but partly because there wasn't really anything else better than it in the choices, but it was still enjoyable and good. And I said, I think it is quite too cerebral for most people. I think that's why a lot of people... There has been very mixed reaction to it. But I think that a lot of people's problem with it has been because, again, a trailer has made them go into it expecting one thing and they come out because it's completely different, being a bit disappointed.
Yeah, but what do you expect from a Luc Besson movie? He's not going to go back to his old style, the kind of films that he did in the 90s. So you know his style now, and so you should know what to expect.
True, but saying that, it's not... I mean, his most science fiction film to date had been... and even concept and stuff had been The Fifth Element. This is a lot more conceptually science fiction than action science fiction.
He just needs to reel back on the Malick stuff. That's not Besson. That's Terrence Malick.
Yes, the ape at the beginning that doesn't look anything like an ape or like a man or anything. He's just quite awful.
It's the kind of thing that you would see in the basement of the cutting room floor of Rise of the Planet of the Apes. The kind of stuff that an intern would have came up with and they laughed at him. Right, on to our first movie of the night.
Yes, so Let's Be Cops, which is the comedy movie from Luke Greenfield, who also had a hand in writing the film along with Nicholas Thomas. The film stars Jake Johnson as Ryan and Damon Wayans Jr. as Justin, two friends who are sharing an apartment in Los Angeles. Ryan is kind of a unemployed sort of bum, doesn't really do anything much. You have Justin is a guy who's a computer programmer who doesn't really have any guts to sort of stand up for himself and really sort of sell this cop designed game that he's looking to try and sort of sell to his bosses so he can then become sort of successful. When that's not successful, he goes along with Ryan, and they're coming up for sort of Halloween. What they're going to do, they're going to wear these costumes they got, or they're going to wear these other costumes they got for this whole police thing, which turns out are actual proper police uniforms. So they decide, okay, we'll do that. They go out on sort of walking dressed up for Halloween for these, wearing these, sorry, not Halloween, for wearing these to a party that's not actually a dress-up party. So end up sort of walking around and, to their surprise, find that people believe them to actually be cops. Here's a clip.
Hey, I'm sorry. I had no idea that you were a cop.
Oh no, I'm not really a cop.
What do you mean?
We're more than cops. Yeah, we help all the intense units, SWAT, FBI. The other day we're on a 5150. And this guy comes off with a sawed-off shotgun, right? And bang, bang, bang! Dude, I look behind me, and J-Rock puts one in the chest. Do not let that humble face fool you. And we all at the Force talk about, we think he needs a serious back massage.
Okay. I'm Josie.
Oh, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too. Chang?
Oh, Chang. Yeah, Chang, yeah. It's a family name.
I'm sure I will see you around, Officer Chang.
So, as usual, this kind of thing, then what happens? It goes from being funny to them finding themselves getting in over their heads. Things get too serious, and then Andy Garcia turns up, and you kind of go, "Oh, I've seen this film before." So this guy comes in, of course. You know, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, and it just becomes even more predictable than it starts out. Because I've seen this before. I've seen it in another film recently, small little film with small actors, not anyone particularly massive in sort of the main roles, and then it was Lawrence Fishburne that turned up in the Andy Garcia role, and it was a film called Ride Along. Some of you may have heard of it. It's quite big.
We're just getting a sequel.
Early in the year, yeah. And that was quite terrible. It did make me laugh in some parts, but it's quite a terrible mess of a film and very predictable, rehashing that kind of thing. Well, this is kind of like Ride Along and a half. It's just predictable, boring. You're kind of sitting there wondering, you know, how these characters get to this, why they're doing it. And you admittedly, again, there's bits in it that made me laugh. I did enjoy it more than Ride Along, but it really is just, it's another one of these rehash comedies of an idea that's gone, oh, we'll do this because it'll be cool. Not because it makes any sense, because, oh, we'll do this because it'll be cool and it'll be funny. And yet, then it'll become serious and we'll still make it cool, we'll still make it funny, even though, you know, people will get shot. And you kind of go, oh, well, it's you know, these absolute slacker characters then will become heroes, and you kind of just go, what? And you're watching it, and as much as I said I like it more than Ride Along, that's not saying a lot, because Ride Along's terrible. Ride Along was awful. This isn't quite awful, but it just has moments where you kind of go in by the numbers. Yep, tick that box. Oh, this is going to happen. Yep, tick that box. Bad guy that's a bad guy and is a good guy is a bad guy, and this is going to happen. And oh yeah, this conveniently happens, and it's literally by the numbers. It's so by the numbers that I honestly could sort of count to 10 by the end of it, and if it wasn't for the fact of having some sort of loud bits with gunshots, I'd probably fall asleep, because it would be like I was counting sheep.
Yeah, the thing with Let's Be Cops is they've taken the two actors who start together in the TV program New Girls, and in a way it seems to be a spin-off movie from the TV series New Girls. Like, taking them characters, they're bumbling characters from that TV program, not that I've sat down and watched a full episode of it, but taking their bumbling characters from that and thinking what it would be like if we made them over the age of 30, so like the characters from the TV program, made one of them a loser, made another one a video game designer, sounds very stereotypical, put them in an apartment together, put them in the fact that they think that they should move back home, and now let's throw in a stupid idea where they take costumes from one of the guys' games that he's creating and make a cop movie out of it. That was probably their idea. They were sitting around the table at New Girl and thinking, we can't use this for an episode. Well, we could, but we'll expand it to a movie. Yeah, it's not funny at all. There was one scene which I have to admit I did have a slight smirk on my face, just because it was ridiculously funny.
Will this be the control the situation scene?
No, it involved a naked black guy in the shop.
Okay.
Who charged at him, and then a part of him didn't need to be in it. Yeah, I slightly smirked at that one. It's just because of his reaction. If you've got a big sweaty fat guy on you, then you would actually react in the same way.
Again, copying things before, had you not seen that in another film which starred Sacha Baron Cohen? I'm not going to say exactly what it is, because that kind of is spoilerish, but if you've seen it, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but I hate Sacha Baron Cohen, so I did think this one was slightly betterly done. But the film itself is stupidly predictable. It drops the comedy element of it and makes it into a drama near to the end, because it thinks that it doesn't have any more legs for the comedy part of the film. So we need to make it serious in a way and make sure that there's a message and make sure that it has a happy ending, that they get what they want, rather than just play it out like a normal film. You don't have to manipulate the ending or manipulate the last 20 minutes to make it interesting. It just proves that the first 80 minutes that you've come up with is pointless when you do that. So it had no conviction in what it was trying to do. It had no funny elements. And the two people who were friends, you can tell that they're friends, but you just would not want to be friends with them because they're annoying.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's just predictable. It's very, as I said, if you've seen Ride Along and you go and see this, you will find there were too many similarities for it not to be a coincidence, is the thing.
Yeah, I think I liked this slightly more than Ride Along.
Yeah, that's true. I have to say that, but only just a smidgen.
Because Kevin Hart is annoying beyond belief. So it's got one of the Wayans brothers. So it's the best Wayans brothers movie this year. The other one being A Haunted House 2.
It's not Wayans brothers, though. It's Wayans' son. It's Wayans Jr., isn't it? So
it's one of the Wayans. But it still
like,
belongs to the Wayans family.
It's like the Baldwins. They're growing in numbers.
But it's definitely the best Wayans film this year by a mile. Wait until you see A Haunted House 2.
Okay. I'll have to see it.
Yeah.
Because I'm doing that on DVD, aren't I? Oh, damn.
Yes. Right, next up is As Above, So Below. It's directed by John Eric Dowdle, who did the American remake of Wreck. So he did Quarantine. This is it's not a found footage film, because the footage never gets found because it never gets lost. It's a shaky cam sort of horror film, and it centres around an archaeologist who's played by Perdita Weeks. Awesome name. And she's obsessed with trying to fulfill what her father sought out to discover. In this case, it's the Philosopher's Stone. It involves alchemy, and the thing when alchemy got mentioned, I didn't know it had anything to do with alchemy, As Above, So Below. My brain just went, yes. Because I'm obsessed slightly with alchemy. And not in the way of the fact that I'm looking for the Philosopher's Stone or whatever, but I find alchemy really interesting. So when they were talking about Philosopher's Stone and transmutations, the fact that they can use Philosopher's Stone without using equivalent exchange and things like that, I was just, yes, I'm so interested in this. And
sorry,
this
just interject there. For anyone listening in the US, that's Sorcerer's Stone.
No, it's actually a Philosopher's Stone, and I know the joke what you're making there. But the Philosopher's Stone is a real thing. It was used in transmutation. Because equivalent exchange meant that if you were trying to get something, you had to put up something very similar in stature to it. Whereas if you had a Philosopher's Stone, you could do it without actually giving up something. So if you wanted to bring somebody back from the dead, you had to kill somebody to bring that person back from the dead. Whereas if you had a Philosopher's Stone, you were be able to actually do that without using equivalent exchange or a transmutation circle. But that's a completely different thing anyway, getting away from the film. So it centres around Scarlett, who's played by Perdita Weeks, and she's trying to fulfill what her father did, and she discovers a map which leads her to the catacombs underneath Paris in France, and so she gets together a group of people to try and help her find this Philosopher's Stone. Here's a clip.
How the hell did they get a piano down there?
Maybe it fell when one of the houses collapsed.
You gotta be kidding.
When I was a kid, we had a piano that looked exactly like this.
Really?
Danny and I used to play it all the time. We only knew one song. My Bonnie Lies Over the Ocean. You remember that song? We could never finish it because the A4 key was messed up.
George.
This is a trip. What's going on?
So the thing with As Above, So Below, the director, he took a decent stab at a remake of one of my favourite found footage films in this case, because the footage was actually found, even though it wasn't technically lost, in Wreck, because I love Wreck 1 and 2, the third one not so much. I can't wait for Apocalypse. And so he took a decent stab in Quarantine, even though it was a very similar film. It wasn't bad. It had its elements from the original, and so that's what made the remake not too bad. The sequel is not very good at all because it completely ditches that stuff. It follows parallel to the second Spanish film. Confusing. But what he's done with As Above, So Below is, I was really interested in this film. I was highly looking forward to this film, even before I found out that it had something to do with alchemy, and I'm not going to go back into that stuff. However, while I was watching this movie, I was in a cinema that wasn't overly packed, but it had a decent amount of people in it. And it's the typical thing where people overreact at scenes, especially the loud bang scenes where you normally get the scares from. And there was a group of kids who were sitting in front of me, and there were two scenes which made them yell. Literally yell. Not a giggle, which you normally expect from people. They actually yelled out really loudly. One involves a scene where, a typical one where the camera turns around, and when it turns back, you got the boom thing. And that made them jump. And another one, yeah, it's just very typical stuff. So the problem with As Above, So Below is it was lacking in anything decent, to be honest. It wasn't scary, because I didn't jump at them. You would expect to jump even more with the fact that they are actually intensifying the jumps with screaming loudly. So you're going, damn it, the people in front of you can't believe they did that to us. But it didn't. It didn't actually affect me. When the movie gets interesting is when it goes insane. Because in the last 25 minutes of the film, when you're finally into the proper catacomb parts of it, the movie goes absolutely crazy. It goes crazy with cults, and you're wondering why they're down there, how they've managed to get down there. These guys in these capes, and this woman who you only see twice in the film. The first time involves a scene where she's walking past a library/coffee shop area, and then the second time you see her down in the catacombs for some reason, like she's following the people around, specifically one of the characters. And so that's when the film gets interesting and sort of becomes okay. the rest of it is just boring. It's not interesting at all. I was expecting much more from this film, considering I was annoyed with Deliver Us from Evil. It wasn't the movie I was expecting. This is the same, and there is only there's a couple of more films released this year, which I'm looking forward to. VHS Viral will not get a cinema release over here, which I'm highly looking forward to. The Babadook, which early reports are saying it is brilliant, and I can't wait for The Babadook. And Annabelle is the only other film which I'm expecting, and I'm hoping that there is some jump scares in it, as I want to finally watch a film where I get jump scared, and no film has done that yet this year. So it's a horror film that, if you're going along with friends who are susceptible to that kind of thing, they will jump at a few little bits and bobs. If not, then you'll just find it very average.
The thing is, I hate these jump scare things, and that's why I don't like horror films, because I don't like them. I'm one of these people who doesn't like to have that scare. And there was some of them in Deliver Us from Evil, which, the thing is, well, you always knew they're coming. You can always tell when they're coming, because they always go really quiet, and then you get that loud bang or whatever it is that happens. So, is this sort of the same in the way tactics that it uses for those?
Yes, it uses that very typical tactics. Like I said, with one of them, it's a camera which pans away, and when it pans back there, and you get the jump scare. And another one, just in all our series, it involves a big long tunnel. But it's it's the very typical jump scares. It's not inventive. It's not the kind of thing where it builds up to a jump scare, where you start feeling on nerve, on the edge. They're the kind of scares which work the best, in my opinion. The payoff scare, rather than the way this film follows. It just follows a very typical route. Just take a cushion or something and hide behind it for a couple of scenes.
I'll go on to my other film from the cinema this week then, $1 Million Arm, which is directed by Craig Gillespie. It is a Disney film, and I'm going to start off by saying that it is a rarity in the cinema now. It is a PG film. It's based on a true story about basically a thing that happened where in 2006, so it's quite recent as well, not that long ago, what happened is that a sports promoter looking to find some way of basically bringing in someone to be an agent for baseball or kind of sports things like that, ends up going to India as sort of the last untapped resource of place in the world where there might be people who can play baseball and be a really good pitcher. Character of JB, played by John Hamm in the film, is this character, and basically finds himself in a situation. He's kind of in dire straits. His little sort of set up business with him and his partner, who have been running for sort of last few years, haven't been able to sign anyone. He's struggling between trying to sign sort of their last possible agent and then organising this to go over to India, where he goes over there for a few months to do this thing, what he comes up with, called $1 Million Arm, where basically it's kind of like a Britain's Got Talent for potential baseball pitchers, taking people who've played cricket so that they can pitch in a similar way and see if they can get some good power behind pitches to be able to then play baseball. What he does is he goes around certain places and takes along with him as a person, a previously sort of well-known scout, played by Alan Arkin, to have a look at some and see if there are any potential ones that could actually come across the States and be good players. Here's a clip.
Check this out. All right, hold on, I'll call you back. What? How long's it been like that?
About a minute.
Is he gonna throw?
I have no idea.
Is that right? 82 with that motion? Is that even possible?
I'm lefty with juice. You don't see that every day.
Lefty with juice is good, sir?
Lefty with juice is great. Admit. Lefty with juice is money in the bank.
So, the thing with $1 Million Arm is that it starts off with this whole thing, and you're watching it, you're going, okay, it's this typical kind of sort of Disney thing. Because it's a PG, obviously it's Disney, it's been very sort of toned down for anything, you know, there's no sort of language or anything in it, there's nothing particularly too graphic or anything in it. It is kind of like one of these old-fashioned Disney films, like the kind of thing they would have done in the 80s. And then there's a bit like where it gets to India and certain things happen, and I actually found a couple of moments I thought, okay, it's been a bit edgy, but not intentionally. It's just doing things about sort of Indian culture and the American view of Indian culture that actually at the start had me thinking, this is going to be sort of 2 hours, because it is quite long, it's a 2-hour film. This is going to be 2 hours of American Indian racism. But when it gets past that opening sort of bit, when the character gets to India, finds that he has to adjust obviously the way he's doing things because it's just different at how they do things, it then becomes this thing where he then starts meeting the characters, meeting people, and meets a couple that he then brings across to the US, starts going through with them, and basically because of them not being used to how things are in America, has to then take them into his house where he's basically having to sort of be their carer a bit and show them the ropes of how to live in America, how things are different, while also at the same time juggling things that are going on with a character played by Lake Bell, who is living in his kind of like, he's got like a summer house thing. What's it called? I can't think. Out in the back of his garden. You know, it's a separate little house thing that he rents out. And it's surprisingly, as it goes on, it kind of shows you it really does have heart, and that's one of these things. It's an old-fashioned Disney film, and I'm saying this not to say that it's very similar, because it's not. But I'm reminded of Frozen. How Frozen was a Disney film that went back to the classic Disney of putting a lot into it, heart and enjoying it and good things and little bits of comedy, because it consistently was just, you were just enjoying it from start to finish. There was moments in it that made you giggle and laugh all the way through. No big laughs, there's no gross out humour in it, and it's oddly as well, it's kind of like the kind of thing that you would have in a Judd Apatow film without the Judd Apatow character being included. The typical, or you know, the like. Also, like things like American Pie, if you didn't have Stifler in American Pie, it's kind of like that. It would be toned down, and that kind of thing. And surprisingly, found myself really getting into it, really enjoying it, really being blown away by just how much I enjoyed it. It's not a fantastic film. It's not an award-winning film. It's not that level, but it kind of took me back to watching old Disney films of the 80s when I grew up watching them, and I've got to say this film won me over because of the heart that's in it. It really has heart, and he's really infused it, and a really, really good. I mean, it's predictable. The more it goes on, you can tell it's going to happen. This is going to happen, even though it's based on a true story, and I've never heard of the true story that happened. And I really, really got to say, I'm surprised how much I enjoyed it.
Okay, I can't say it seemed an interesting film because it was a film that's come out of nowhere. I'd never heard of this film until we obviously go over the lists and what we're going to do. A couple of weeks prior was when I heard this film, because it hadn't seemed to be getting the publicity that you would normally expect from a Disney film, considering it's got Disney's name attached to it. You would have expected going to see an animated film or a kids film or a film at least rated 12 here, and you would see the trailer for $1 Million Arms, so it's not out there. So how well do you think it's going to do it? Do you think that's going to harm it, even though it's got the Disney's name attached to it?
I think it's going to struggle, because I actually saw the trailer before Guardians of the Galaxy. Obviously, as we know, Guardians of the Galaxy is Marvel, which is now owned by Disney, so it's kind of predictable. Anything upcoming that's going to be Disney released will get shown a trailer before anything that Marvel's doing. But the thing is that the really kind of disappointed me is that I went and saw it. I would have loved to have seen this with an audience. Unfortunately, there was only 4 of us watching it on a Saturday early evening showing, which is not a good sign at all. So I don't think it's going to do well here. I think it's done. I'm not sure actually how it's done in America, but I think it would have done okay. It's because of it being baseball, because it's not a sport that's really taken up over here. It's a sport. It's the kind of thing like we had with Rush, with F1 and racing. That's not really big in America, but it's big in Europe. It's that kind of cultural clash thing. So that's what's going to be the issue with it. That I actually, unfortunately, don't think it's going to get higher than at the most 5 in the UK box office next week, and I wish it would get higher.
Do you see? The thing is, though, it's trying to clash 2 cultures together, because the fact that you've got cricket, which most Europeans and Indians and that area there understand fully, but the Americans don't, and then you've got baseball, which us in Europe don't understand it at all. but the Americans get it, so it's clashing two cultures in that case. So you think that they were trying to play it safe by having it both and like that and going with that kind of story and thinking that they might have hedged their bets.
Well, the thing that's really interesting about it is that you don't, because I'm not into cricket, and I actually know more about baseball than I do about cricket, admittedly, because I just don't like really either, but I have to say, you don't need to know either. It's kind of like, you remember Margin Call, which is all about the stock shares and the stock failure, and it became about the people. It wasn't about the stocks. It wasn't about the market. That's how this basically. This isn't about the sport. This is about the people and that are involved in that particular story and what happened.
And that's the best.
That's the best way they could have really approached it, so that it's approachable to anyone. You don't have to have even a passing interest in the sport to be able to follow it.
Yeah, it's the best way to actually approach those kind of films, because Senna, even though it is, like we keep mentioning, it is fully about Formula One, it's more about the character of Ayrton Senna himself, rather than the full-on Formula One stuff. The same with Rush. It's about both of those characters, rather than just the thing that they're playing. With this, it sounds like it's more about the people's journey, rather than what they're playing. And I like it when they do it that way.
I mean, I'm just looking as well at the actual details for it, because $1 Million Arm, the cost of it was estimated to roughly be about 25 million. So it's not an expensive film. I mean, that's a lot, but it's not an expensive film for what it is. And it grossed in the US so far has grossed 36 million. So it's not been a massive success, but it's not been a failure either.
It's got a few territories, obviously, to open up. It might do well in the Australian territories and in India and places like that. So we'll see what it's like when it finishes its run.
Yeah.
Right then, next up, the final film in the cinema section is Night Moves. It's directed by Kelly Reichardt. It's got a pretty decent cast in the form of Jesse Eisenberg, Dakota Fanning and Peter Sarsgaard. And it centres on three environmentalists, specifically mainly around Jesse Eisenberg's character and Dakota Fanning's. And what they're trying to do is they don't believe this hydroelectric dam, which is not far from where they are, is a good thing for any community. So they plan to destroy this hydroelectric dam. And so the film itself, even though it's not meant to be split up into two parts, it feels like it is. So in the first section, it's just about these three people getting to know each other and getting together bits and pieces so they're able to blow up a dam. Here's a clip which explains some of them, the bits that they need to get.
How much do you have?
£1,000, give or take.
And how much do we need?
£500 would be nice.
£500.
Look, we can go with what we have. I mean, it's probably all right. God knows that dam wants to come down. There's a serious tonnage of water just pushing up against her walls. Everything in the world is telling her to give up and let go. But still, I mean, we should just help her all we can. Right?
So what are you saying that we do?
Let's go to the feed store in the morning. So?
They're not going to sell us that much.
There's just one way to find out.
No, anything over 10 pounds sends up major red flags for these
That's
guys.
not necessarily true.
It is.
We should have known about this earlier.
Yeah. 1 second, let me just... Okay, now, if that's what we gotta do.
Yeah. All right, we'll go out in the morning. And we'll come back here and stuff the turkey.
And so the second part of the film involves what happens with the fallout when they do manage to go ahead with their plan. What happens with the three of them and how fractured they become, how sort of like on edge, or how they think one of them might do something, like for instance phone the police to try and blame the other two when they discover something went drastically wrong with what they're doing. Now, as I was speaking with Andrew in the clip there, it's not a film for the impatient type, because not very much actually happens in the film. It's one of those kind of films where it's on for 2 hours. It never feels like it's running time at all. But not very much happens in the movie itself. You don't get big explosions, even though they're trying to blow up a dam. You never see the dam getting blown up. You just hear the aftermath of that happening. You never see any turmoil between the characters where there's some explosive fights between them, or somebody gets badly injured or anything like that. There is nothing like that. It's just following three characters and how where they have a common interest, how when they fully fill that common interest, what happens in the fallout after that. So if you're interested in those kind of films, then this movie will hold interest with you. It's very well acted by Jesse Eisenberg and Dakota Fanning. Peter Sarsgaard, when he's on screen, he's a really good actor anyway, and he plays really well with his character that he's got. He's not in the film as much as both Eisenberg and Fanning, but he's still really good. I think with Jesse Eisenberg and Dakota Fanning, Jesse Eisenberg has shown over the last few years that he can do serious. He's very much like the other actor he gets mixed up with. Jesse Eisenberg gets mixed up with. He was in Magic.
I haven't seen Magic, so I can't think who it is.
I forgot what his name is. I'm gonna have to IMDb it because it'll just annoy me. Michael Cera. He's very much like Michael Cera. Both of those two get mixed up. Michael Cera and Jesse Eisenberg, and I think
say Scott Pilgrim. I would have got that.
I think if those two starred in a film together, it'll be scary. It'll be like The Double for real. So it'll be really interesting because I love the way they've both chosen their roles over the last few years. They haven't gone. They could have stayed in the Hollywood limelight and gone with very basic romantic comedies, but they haven't. They've chosen very interesting roles. And this movie, it's not getting a decent enough distribution. It's only getting shown on a small amount of screens. But it shows you how good Eisenberg is as an actor. And the same with Dakota Fanning, how she's really good as an actress. It has problems with the fact that it lags a bit. Even though the running time is on for 2 hours, it never feels like that, but it still lags because very little happens in the movie. When the fallout happens after the incident, what they've done, that's when the film becomes even more interesting rather than the following up to it. You just want to see how fractured those three people can get, how they can turn on each other with just a click of a finger. And it does happen in a few of the scenes. So it's very well acted. It's an interesting film. It's very low key as well, that's what I liked about the movie as well. The fact that it didn't try to go off on a different turn point. Like it's going down a road and then it takes a completely different turning and it becomes something that it's not. So I like the fact that the director stuck with her guns. It's just the ending is horrible. The way it ends, it's one of those abrupt endings. It just ends, and then that's it. You expect something more rounded, but overall, it's not bad.
So does this herald good things in for Eisenberg playing Lex Luthor in the Batman vs Superman film?
Yeah, because he doesn't have to do very much to have a malevolent look on his face. He honestly doesn't. He can just look at a camera and you believe him when he's saying that he's going to kill somebody. If he ever, and I hope that this doesn't happen with him, if he ever takes hostages robbing a bank, then you just don't want to be the police officer to go up against him because you will believe that he will take a shotgun and blow somebody's head off. He's the kind of person who would kick a kitten down the street and you wouldn't stop.
That's a bit harsh.
You just would not stop if you see him kicking a kitten. You just wouldn't stop him because you know he would actually pounce on you and rip off your head. So he is that kind of actor. Unlike we keep picking on her, but I don't care. We pick on Kirsten Stewart, who has only got one facial expression, and that looks like she's breaking wind all the time. Eisenberg has multiple facial expressions. They're all terrifying.
Okay.
Simple as that. Right, that's it for the cinema releases this week. We'll be back after this ad break with the home releases.
The From Page to Screen movie cast. So they have 9 times out of 10 they have to send it back to you unopened or just throw it in the garbage can.
Things don't always look exactly as we envision our life to look, but sometimes it works out and turns out even better.
Gregor Fisher, his bacon number is 2 because he was appeared with January Jones in Love Actually, and January Jones and Kevin Bacon appeared in X-Men First Class together.
I've got to say, the very Harold and Kumar 3D Christmas now, that just makes me want to rush out.
It's about the acting and about the writing. That's really what theatre is for me.
Probably had more names than Prince or whatever. Never mind, there's a joke for the oldies. They'd be like, who's Prince? Who's he? I'd just like to see Mr. Freeze hiring his bad guys going, right, okay, so you're a psycho, right, can you ice skate? Head over to iTunes, Spreaker and Stitcher and put in the search box From Page to Screen.
And we are back with this week's Monday movie show on a Sunday. to our home releases with DVDs and Blu-rays, but not that many this week because we've only got a few releases coming out this week, including...
Yeah, we have The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I've got it written down wrong here. I've got it down as The Amazing Spider-Man 2. So my spell is just as bad as yours. Last Love and Painless.
Yeah, and also as well as that, we're going to have a look at the UK DVD and Blu-ray top 10, and after that as well, we'll give you a look at a couple of movies coming up on UK television this week to watch out for. But before that, as I say, if you are listening to us live, you can also chat to us. In the bottom right hand corner of the screen, you have a little speech icon you can click on there, as some people have already been during the first part of the show. So feel free to give us some feedback on these films as we go through the DVD and Blu-ray top 10.
Yeah, just one quick word about TV movie of the week. If we get an email from somebody or a message from somebody saying, why don't you choose an American one as well, I'm going to smack you. Because there's no way we're actually going to be able to find out what's on American TV.
Yeah.
It's very British related, yeah. So at number 10 is Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yeah, I mean, obviously in there because of Robin Williams' death a couple of weeks ago. Although I've got to admit, I mean, who doesn't already have this film? But it's, it's a good comedy. It's a classic one. It's probably one of the ones he's most remembered for. Because it was the one that was kind of his first film that was really a kid's film, wasn't it? Apart from maybe Aladdin. But the first film that actually saw him on screen that was a big thing for kids.
Yeah. It's one of his best roles as well, dressing up as a woman.
Yeah, and they were planning to do a sequel as well, unfortunately, which is a shame.
Yeah, there's a film out on DVD and Blu-ray next week with Robin Williams in. I can't remember off the top of my head what it's called. Number 9 is Noah. I know, back to the Geordie Mackham thing. Noah.
Yeah, it's getting tired, so I won't bother with it.
I know it is.
Yeah, I mean, it is so out there, it's so unbalanced, it really is very misjudged. And that's not saying that it's terrible, because it's pretty terrible, it's pretty bad. But it has a sort of a saving sort of 45 minutes in the middle, which is kind of okay and is a really good sort of performance scene. It's the kind of thing that would be really good maybe on a stage play. But the rest of the film is just bat crap crazy.
Agreed. At number 8 is Pring 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 Pring, the annoying lock.
Yeah, annoying to you, but not to me. I really enjoyed it, and I don't know if this is because I haven't seen it on DVD. You have. I saw it at the cinema, and you didn't. So I don't know if this is because of the fact of that I found it very captivating. I thought it was very well done. I thought it was a nice experiment that did pay off. Having it all set in a car with only one character there on screen, having him talking to people on the phone. It is kind of thing like a stage play again. But I thought Tom Hardy was very good. And I didn't find his accent annoying. I found it a little bit distracting at points, but I kind of got over that very quickly. And I thought the character's a bit sort of weird because you're not sure really how to feel about him, but I thought it was a nice small independent film and I was quite impressed with it.
Yeah, the phone call stuff got on my nerves. Tom Hardy is really good in it. His Welsh accent's very strange. His kids and his wife don't have an accent at all, which makes me think, did he kidnap them or something? But yeah, that's just...
Not everyone marries someone from the same village.
I know, but still, you would have thought you would have had a slight tinge to their voices. The film itself is really well handled by Hardy. I don't know why he chose his character to have a Welsh accent. It's just slightly pointless in my opinion.
Different.
But at least I think he should have just kept with a normal voice, considering a lot of people couldn't even understand him when he was being in Batman. So a lot of people definitely not understand him in Locke. I wouldn't be surprised that in American cinema, when this was shown, they had subtitles on the bottom because they couldn't understand what he was saying. But it's just the phone stuff which got on my nerves. The amount of time that I was screaming at the screen, just pick up your phone. Can't you just pick up your phone practically straight away instead of waiting to ring 9 times and doing that multiple times? So the film is interesting. It's just, please strip out the phone stuff. At number 7 is Rio 2.
Which is, the animation is nice on it. It's kind of on par with the first one in that the animation's nice, but the characters, the story are kind of a bit, underwhelming to say the least. It's an example of the non-Pixar Disney level animation that we're getting now. And even the thing, it's better than what most of the films have been out in the cinema this year, animated films, but it's really still far below what we should be getting.
It's Blue Sky who did the Ice Age stuff. So
it's not as good as the Ice Age films, I don't think.
Yeah, but it's a million times better than the film at number 6, which is a new entry for Tarzan.
Oh yes, absolutely one of the worst animated films I've ever seen. The animation is terrible, and I mean laughably. It's so bad that you're literally taken out of the film watching it and going, "What? Who did this?" They released this in the cinema, and then the fact they released it on DVD, and then there's going to be so many people who now have gone, "I bought this."
Exactly. I'm surprised that it managed to get into the top 10. To be honest,
I'm glad it didn't get in the top 5, but I'm still surprised it got. I'm kind of annoyed it got higher than Locke.
It's too high for that film. And number 5 is the Lego Movie.
I mean it's what can we say other than everything is awesome, because it is, and this film really is, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with the further one.
I don't own it on Blu-ray or DVD.
I don't, admittedly, either, but
Shocking.
I will do eventually.
Yeah, I don't even own the film at number 4, which is even more shocking. Frozen.
Yeah, and I mean those two animated films are up to now sort of the best animated films we've had this year. They are both of that worthy title.
Yeah, exactly. At number 3, another film that I don't own, Divergent.
But it's a fantastic film, and for me, a better film than The Hunger Games. It's a similar kind of vein, based on these young adult novels with a central female character, and it's, I think, a better film because of the fact of there's more to the character, I think, than there is to Katniss in Hunger Games, and I think it's a more interesting world than the Hunger Games world. So I think it's very well directed. I think it's a well told story, and I really do look forward more to the sequels to this than I do to the last 2 Hunger Games films.
You'll sense a theme here. At number 2 is another film I don't own, Transcendence.
And the thing is, Transcendence is one of those films that it looks good on paper, doesn't quite work on film. I think that it gets kind of caught up in its own hype a little bit at parts. It's also too reliant on Johnny Depp's performance when it should be relying on other things like the story and other characters. And as much as there are other actors in there, like Paul Bettany, who's doing his best, Paul Bettany can't do a bad performance. He may do bad films, but he can't do bad performance. And it's the same with this. It's not a great film, but his performance is good. Just that everything else in the film, it doesn't come together. It feels like it's missing parts, but it's still also too long. It needs to be trimmed down because it is 2 hours in length, and is really just it doesn't come together.
I don't think I agree with you in the fact that Paul Bettany doesn't do a bad performance, because I didn't like him in Priest.
Priest, I like Priest. I actually like Priest as a film, and I like Paul Bettany in Priest. So any other film then other than Priest that he didn't do a good performance?
Legion?
No, I think his performance is good in that. He's not given much to do in it, but
yeah, it's very wooden. And at number 1, surprisingly, it's another film I don't own, Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
Yeah, which we both agree is among the top 3 Marvel films that have been made. We're not going to go into who has opinions on where, but we both agree this is in the top 3 Marvel films been made so far. And I said top 3.
Yeah, that's where mine is, 3.
And really, really good. I love it. I love that it's kind of really. It seems to be trying to be not a comic book film, and yet it still is, and that it's really kind of appropriate to the world at the moment, I think, and it's very apt for that. So really impressed with it, really enjoyed it, and really, really good fun. I think it still falls into the traps a little bit of a comic book movie. It's trying to be something different. It's not going the typical comic book film way. So
yeah, the floor of it is different to what you would see in a comic book film. I like the floor of the film. That's the best one. I would say it. I think the floor in this is slightly better than Guardians of the Galaxy. It's just I think Guardians of the Galaxy is a more entertaining film.
I think this flows better and it works better because of the fact that it has that political element to it. I like that, so that's why I found it. It surprised me how much more political they managed to cram into it for it being basically a Marvel kids film.
And that's what happens when you get an aged actor in the form of Robert Redford to be your bad guy in your film, Michael Biehn. Take note.
Well, no, Kelsey Grammer, you can't blame him for that. But
no, still take note.
Okay, let's go on to our first and really big movie release on DVD and Blu-ray this week.
Which surprisingly I've got, because Andrew does the reviews of these kind of films in the cinema section, and I do them in DVDs. We have the same, well, I would say we the same kind of thing with horror, but sort of. You try. At least you try.
I try.
Yeah, I know. You try. The Amazing Spider-Man 2. It's directed by Mark Webb.
Sometimes.
I know. I could have said, do you want a Wobby Pop for trying, but then it would be pushing it too far. But yep, The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
I'm sit here and sulk now. Okay.
Mona. The Amazing Spider-Man 2, for the third time. It's directed by Mark Webb, and it stars Andrew Garfield, who plays Peter Parker, or Spider-Man. And it opens up with what actually happened to Peter Parker's parents. I'm not going to explain it because I might get shouted at by Andrew saying, it's a plot spoiler or whatever, even though it happens in the first 2 minutes of the film.
No, actually, I don't mind you saying that. Mention about it because I'm going to discuss that afterwards, after your review, because it's something that I found out since.
I'll let you expand on that a little bit when we discuss it, rather than me saying what it is. But it explains what happened to Peter Parker's family and the fact that it involves something that they try to get out of Oscorp. And then the movie goes back to present day and showing how Peter Parker's handling the city, the fact that he is now Spider-Man, and people are sort of like putting all of their, you might as well say, their lives in his hands in a way. Or anything bad that happens in the city, he's expected to show up. And it opens up with a set piece where it sees Spider-Man going through the city to try and stop this truck that's got plutonium in it, and to try and stop it. During that, he rescues an employment from Oscorp, who's played by Jamie Foxx, who plays Max Dillon, and he becomes obsessed with him, really badly obsessed with Spider-Man. It then goes to when Peter Parker is with Gwen Stacy, who's played by Emma Stone, and he gets a realization what Gwen Stacy's father told him to do to stay away from her, just to protect her. She's the valedictorian at a school, and she's making the speech when everybody's graduating, and he realizes that he needs to stay away from her because bad things could happen to her. It then switches again. This is a problem with superhero movies. They seem to switch a lot during the film and then try to tie it all together, because Peter Parker's friend, whose old friend, who's played by Dane DeHaan in the movie, who plays Harry Osborn, has come back to visit his father, who's on his deathbed. He then ultimately gets Oscorp as his own and discovers that it's been eaten from the inside. Everything that the people who work at Oscorp has been trying to change everything, and he's not very happy with it, and he ultimately gets betrayed. We then switch back to Jamie Foxx's character, who's involved in an incident which imbues him with electricity powers, and there's a set piece which involves Spider-Man going up against him in Times Square. Here's a clip.
How are you?
I don't know what's going on with me.
I can see that. I believe you.
Strange. I feel I got so much anger.
I can see that. I can see you don't want to be here. I can see you're scared. I can see you don't know what's happening to you. I can see that you don't want to hurt anybody. It's going to be all right.
Got a clear shot. Standing by.
I don't want them shooting
I'm
me.
not going to shoot you. You guys, this is my buddy Max. I told you about Max. No one shoots at Max. You and me, okay? It's just you and me talking. Whoa, stay right there. Stay right there. Just be careful of the grate because of the electricity.
I just wanted everyone to see me.
He makes a move, you take that shot.
How about you come with me? Okay. Go somewhere we'll talk. Away from all these people, okay?
So yeah, he becomes one of the adversaries who Spider-Man has to go up against. Unfortunately for him, he's not the only one, because Harry has been thrown into this prison area where he ultimately becomes evil. He becomes the Green Goblin. That's not, again, spoiling anything. It's in the trailer. And so he has to go up against him, and he has to go up against multiple enemies, let's just say. Now, the thing with The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is I think we might have to agree on the fact that it seemed a bit too early to reboot the Spider-Man series. It was wasn't it less than 5 years after Spider-Man 3?
It is, but that's because of the fact that if this whole thing of the
they would drop the license.
If they didn't start production on a film within a certain amount of years, certain amount of time, then the license would go back to Marvel, who would love it to get it back at the moment, but because it's still making money for Sony don't want to let go of it.
it's one of the properties that Marvel wants back. But like you said, Sony will not relinquish it because it's not just the films that make money for it. The games make a lot of money for Sony as well. So yeah, even though Activision are the one who published the games, it's still making a lot for Sony. And so it was given to the hands of Mark Webb, no pun intended there, considering it's Spider-Man. It's just a happy coincidence in that instant. And The Amazing Spider-Man, I felt like it was the average Spider-Man. It was okay for what it was, but it never tried to push any boundaries. It was fine. That's the problem with this one as well. It tries to throw too much into the mix, but never gets a decent blend. It's just... The parts where this movie works is the relationship between Peter Parker and the characters, specifically his aunt and Gwen Stacy. And also, there is a scene which I was going to play the clip from, but I think we played it in the cinema section, which involves Peter meeting with Harry, and they're just skimming stones.
Yeah.
That's when the film's actually interesting, because it's character development which you don't see a lot in these movies, and it's very well played out. There's some decent emotional attachment to them. Where the movie gets boring and stupidly predictable is the scenes that is necessary for these movies. You need these big action set pieces, and the set pieces are just rushed. They're really badly rushed. Electro as a character, as a bad guy, is just one-dimensional. I likened him to, when we reviewed it in the cinema section, to the electricity gremlin from Gremlins 2. Because there is a scene where he does go down into the wires of Oscorp, and I liked him to that, and it was very one-dimensional. The same with when Harry becomes the Green Goblin. It was rushed. The makeup on it is really well done, but it's just really badly rushed. And so I didn't like the superhero element of the movie. I like the drama element, which is not the way it should have been. You need to like them both. They need to work both together. And for me, it didn't.
I had to say as well, I mean, I like it. I like the new reboot more than Sam Raimi's version. I think that Andrew Garfield is a better Spider-Man than Tobey Maguire.
I agree with you on that. Yeah, I definitely agree with you there.
And I like the whole thing of what they did with the web shooters, because they changed it. In Raimi's version, they changed it and made it different, and that's going to go very technical, but I like what they did with the character more in this. I like the fact that it has got more emotion to it, and the characters, because there's scenes that you have between Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy, Emma Stone playing that are, they do feel like kind of like an 80s, not a teen romance thing, but an 80s teen film sort of thing.
The thing just
that's a problem. That's a problem. I'm going to say that it's a problem. I think this is where you agree with me on this, is that it changes gear between the action scenes and these teen scenes between them, because it's like Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone are not teenagers, but it still felt like kind of teenagers, and I thought that was very well done. But it is a complete gear shift when those scenes happen in the film.
Just to jump back on those emotional scenes, I think they're handled better in this one because he doesn't try to over-expand them. Like with Spider-Man 2 and 3, Peter Parker became such a mopey character with the amount of bad stuff happening to him in those two films. It just became so annoying. Like, he was an emo. Like, he was locked into his bedroom, his walls were painted black, and he was listening to music like My Chemical Romance, rather than trying to forward the story and try to push it a little bit forward. He just became really mopey. Mark Webb didn't do that with this Peter Parker. He realised we do need that emotional attachment, but don't make it like he is whining all the way through the film.
Yeah, and the thing is, we were saying about the opening, and I'm going to say the opening scene involves his parents and what happened to them before the present day stuff happens, because you see it actually goes back to the very opening of the first film, the reboot film, where you saw the young Peter Parker walk into his father's office, and he finds it all trash and he screams for his father, and you see the other side of that with his father there coming in, hearing him screaming, and then seeing it. So I like that, but I realised after having seen the film that a little while after, I was kind of looking at it and going, that whole opening scene does not need to be there. It felt, and I realised basically there was a missing scene. The only reason it exists would be if his father shows up in it. And I guess it's kind of spoilers, but I'm not trying to spoil this. Basically, his father doesn't appear in the film, apart from that opening bit. And the thing is, I found out as well when I actually posted that on Facebook, and people then responded to it. Someone, I can't remember who it was, someone from Following the Nerd responded to it, posted me a link to the video clip from the deleted scenes. This is before the DVD came out of showing a scene where Peter's dad turned up. So the film is suffering, I think, from having scenes in it that aren't necessary because other scenes have been cut out of the film, and so as a result, it does lag and feel far too long. It's 2 hours and 20 odd minutes, and it should not be that long because it needs to be stripped down. And I think that's a problem that they've made for themselves, where they started doing one thing, they decided, no, we won't do that, we'll leave it out, and then they left the other bits in there which shouldn't be there. So it is too long. It's 2 hours and 20 minutes. It's at least 20 minutes too long, and I think that they kind of pigeonholed themselves into certain aspects of it and then found themselves stuck and couldn't change it at that point. So I think it's been quite poorly planned but well executed.
I completely agree with you with the opening scene. It just felt disjointed from the film. If you don't buy the Blu-ray and DVD with the extras on it to get that scene that explains why the opening scene is there, then, and you've only seen it in the cinema, you'll probably agree with us, the fact that it should have just started with Peter flying into the city rather than the where it started in there, because it didn't need that scene in the theatrical release.
And that sequence at the beginning is beautifully done. I've got to say, the special effects for swinging Spider-Man, and he's obviously advanced since the first film, has really, really been done to perfection in this film. The opening scene with you're saying about the radioactive material, that chase there and the swinging as him going through the city, I thought I was completely gobsmacked and blown away. I loved that, every second of it. But it's just the rest of it is very mismatched, and it goes kind of between two different stories where it should really be one.
It's a superhero movie that doesn't have a muted colour palette. It's not afraid to actually explore other colours beyond red, blue and green. It's got a lot of vibrance to it. It's got a lot of neon to it, which is needed in Electro's character. And they could have bottled out a little bit in the Times Square scene, which we played the clip from, is very well executed. It's believable CGI rather than cheesy CGI. It worked really well. It's just his character is just too one-dimensional, in my opinion. So that it's not up there with the best of the superhero movies. It's up there with the average to passable superhero films, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's on the positive side, but it's not much.
It felt more like a 1.5 rather than a sequel. It felt like just an add-on to, like an expansion pack in the video game territories. It felt more like that rather than trying to push a storyline, because the way the action set pieces are rushed. They were just badly rushed, and the way the bad guys were just cobbled together and thrown in there. It's just not Paul Giamatti's character, for example. It shows up at the start of the film and doesn't show up again near to the end of the movie. And it's just realised, we're going to set up where the next film, which is supposedly not going to be out until 2017, 2018, is going to be that. And so it's going to be the payoff. So it just felt like a 1.5, with the next film being the proper sequel.
Okay, I'm going to go on to the next film, which is Last Love, or it's also known in other countries under the name Mr. Morgan's Last Love. It's based on a book by Francois Dormer, and I don't have the original name because it's a French book. The movie is set in France. It has Michael Caine playing Matthew Morgan. At the start of the film, we're introduced to him actually sitting at his the side of his wife's bed, who has passed away. He's obviously distraught and such. And then we see afterwards, later on, he's then living in their apartment in France on his own, and sort of lives this kind of solitary life. He gets a phone call from his son, who is in the US. I should say Michael Caine is doing an American accent throughout this film. Gets a call from his son in the US, who is there with his family and his grandson, saying that they're not able to come across, and sort of feels a bit sort of lost and lonely because of this. Ends up sort of, you see him in his sort of everyday life. Someone comes round to sort of help him and cook meals for him and such. He instead decides to go out and sort of walk around and get a meal or a sandwich out somewhere. Refuses to learn to speak French, and we see him sort of seeing flashbacks or sort of hallucinations of his wife talking with her about the thing of, he doesn't need to learn French because he has her, and she speaks French, and things sort of going on. He has this sort of weird thing where he meets this young woman and has sort of strikes up a friendship with her, and ultimately is a film focusing on their relationship and how it sort of affects him and how things are sort of changing in life, and the whole thing of mortality and old age, and it's a drama that focuses on that. At times, especially near the beginning, it reminded me of I can't remember the film now as well. I forgot the name. I did have it written down, but I can't find it. Is it Amore?
Amore, the film about the relationship between the two old couples.
Yes.
Yes.
It reminded me at times of that because it's very similar French apartment sort of setting for most of the film, and then it goes and sort of twists things into a different direction, and has this weird relationship thing going on. And the problem is that it never kind of really decides to go for a full in-depth of what's going on in the film with the characters, and it kind of tries to play it safe, too safe that it's really disappointing. And that's a shame because Michael Caine in it is really brilliant. Michael Caine's doing a really great performance throughout it, and it's a really, really good performance. So good that there's also scenes where his son does turn up. His son, played by Justin Kirk, plays Miles, and there's this issues between the two of them over previous events, past events, and there's ambiguity between them, and this comes out between the two of them when they're talking in scenes, and it's really well played. But it's just it's a case of that the film is 2 hours long. It's too long. It really needs stripping down because its running time just drags out certain elements, and you're kind of sitting wondering where is this going, and then it kind of changes direction a bit, and then it kind of wanders and wavers without having anywhere to go. And it's the thing about it is that it's not a great film, but it's a very sad film. It actually had me feeling quite depressed at times because of the fact of the character and the way he's feeling. So it's kind of good in the way it's done, but it's a bit of a unsuccessful film in that it's too long. It doesn't have a clear focus on what it wants to do, but it does get the point across of, I think, what it's trying to, but it's just it's not quite there.
Right, final film is Painless, or Insensible, as its original title is. It mixes two languages together. It's in Spanish and in French, and it's split into two bits, a bit like there was a film called Intruders, which bled into each other near to the end of the film. This is very much the same as that. It's directed by Juan Carlos Medina, and it centers the first bit is in 1920s, where it centers around these kids in a small little village, in a Spanish village, and they can't feel pain at all, no matter what happens to them. There's a scene which involves one of the friends getting set on fire, and she can't feel anything. However, the other friend can, but she doesn't realise that, and so the one of the friends dies. And so these kids are taken away from their parents and put in this abandoned asylum in Spain because the civil war is going on. The Germans are still trying to get themselves together after the turmoils of World War One, ultimately leading up to World War Two. And so the Spanish Civil War is ongoing, and they get put into this asylum where they're experimented on to try and put them back into society, but ultimately learn that what pain is. Then the film is also set in present day, and it centres around a brilliant scientist, a neurosurgeon, who discovers that he's got cancer and he needs a bone marrow transplant. He goes to his parents, and ultimately realises that they're not his parents, but he has some kind of connection to these kids from the 1920s. And so he needs to discover the secret and truth what went on. And so both parts of the film plays out. So the part with the kids plays out up until the 1960s, and his part, he ultimately discovers what actually happened to these kids. Now, the way I felt about this film was, it's very much like if you take the brilliant Pan's Labyrinth, the Guillermo del Toro film, and if you take out the fantastical elements, so if you take out the fauns and stuff like that, and it centres around a girl inside of a house and a father is a horrible, horrible, nasty person while a war's going on. This is very much like that. It's just the kids are getting experimented on while the war's going on, and the Germans invade this Spanish asylum. They discover one of the doctors is German, so they let him get on with the experiments, but ultimately kill everybody else in there, and so they can control everything, and that's the way the Germans were like. And with the present day story, it's more interesting because you're finding out you want the person to find out how he's attached to these people, and it played out really well. When it gets to the end of the film, that's when it starts to explore the fantastical element of it, and it becomes slightly weak, but it doesn't distract from the rest of the film itself. It's a very involving film, very emotional film at times, especially because the fact that it involves kids. And horror movies and kids don't meld very well because a lot of people get freaked out by them, and I think they work brilliantly in horror films. When it involves kids getting experimented on, that's where the drama side of it works exceptionally well. And in this film, that's the case. And so you get emotionally attached to these kids. You don't want to see bad things happening to them because they can't feel it. They don't know what the difference between pain and no pain. And so I really like this film. It's very well played out. It's very understated. And it never tries to do anything different to what it is. It doesn't do any jump scares. There is no jump scares in this movie at all, which is a good thing.
There's more sort of psychological horror than physical horror.
That's why when we always read out the films and say this is a certain movie, it doesn't technically belong to the horror category. It's a drama with fantastical elements to it, because I wouldn't even put Pan's Labyrinth in the horror category. It doesn't belong in that category at all. I don't find it to be a horror movie, and this is very much the same. It's not a horror film, but it has hints of that genre in it. I really liked it. Please, if you can find it, hunt it out.
Okay, interesting. Right, so before we go on to do our movies of the week, shall we go through TV movies of the week?
Yep.
Now, I've got two because we were talking about it, and we both picked on the first one, but I picked the second one as well. So do you want to go through the one that you picked that we both kind of picked?
Yeah, it's Rust and Bone, De Roule et Droit. It's got Marion Cotillard in it and Matthias Schoenaerts. It's directed by Jacques Alliard, and it's a brilliant drama centered around it's just love and how the fact that an incident which happens to them, in this case Marion Cotillard's character, and how people can connect with each other. It's on Film 4 on Tuesday the 2nd of September at 11:10, and we think that it's the channel premiere, or at least the premiere, because I don't remember it seen anywhere else.
No, as well, I don't remember it.
So it's highly recommended. It is one of those rare occasions where both me and Andrew agree on a film have been a high caliber, and this one is. It's Marie Cotillard. You can expect her to be in a brilliant, even if she's in a bad film. Again, she's one of those actresses who she plays her characters really well, and she's fantastic in this movie. So is Matthias Schoenaerts.
I was actually really surprised, and I kind of still stick by the idea that I said I view it kind of like a romantic drama without the romance.
Yeah.
Which is a very weird thing to say, but I think you agree that kind of works, doesn't it? It's very weird, but that kind of is very apt for the way to describe it.
I think if it was under the guise of different actors, I don't think it would have worked very well. It's just because the actors who Jacques Alliard chose was the perfect ones to fit the roles of the characters in the film.
The other movie, which is also on this week, but on Wednesday night, that's Tuesday night for Rust and Bone, Wednesday night though at 9 o'clock on Film 4, is Man on a Ledge, which is not a brilliant film, but the thing is, it's one of these kind of B-rate movies, but it's fun, enjoyable, and I think you enjoyed it as well when you saw it too, so it's an okay film. It ticks all the boxes successfully and is not a bad way to spend an hour and a half, probably about 2 hours with adverts.
It's very much like Phone Booth.
Yes.
They would make a very well double bill that would match each other, Phone Booth and Man on a Ledge.
Yeah, very, very similar sort of concept movies, but
yeah,
pays off and works quite well.
It's okay.
Okay. All right, that's it for this week's show. Thank you for listening to us live if you have, or thank you for also downloading us on the podcast. You can always find us at mondaymovieshow.co.uk. You can also find us on Twitter. Stuart's on there at Cryptic Tadpole. I'm on there at AHDVD. And you can also find us at Monday Movie Show. Email us mondaymovieshow@yahoo.com. And also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Monday Movie Show. Few shout-outs as usual. Followingthenerd.com, which Stuart will be there on Thursday night, probably talking about Doctor Who more in depth as he goes through the UK box office top 10 on there with Mark, and I'm not sure who will be there this week, but normally someone else as well. Saxon. Probably, yeah, if it's Doctor Who, it'll be Saxon. We've also got then as well the advert you heard during the show from Page to Screen, which is from Page to Screen with the number 2 instead of TO in the middle .com. And also, as usual, the charity we do support, Seren Foundation, which is SEREN Foundation.org.uk. So that's it for this week's show. We'll be back. I think we are next Monday, aren't we?
Hopefully.
Hopefully. Check out mondaymovieshow.co.uk. You will see the date and time confirmed on there in the middle of the week. First of all, though, before we go, we are going to say movie of the week.
Painless.
Painless? I'm going to say $1 Million Arm. And I'm surprised at that because I wasn't expecting it. But we'll head off now, and we'll be back next week with a selection of movies, what's coming out. But we're going to leave you with a clip now for one of Philip Seymour Hoffman's final films made before his death. A sort of spy thriller from the writer John le Carré in A Most Wanted Man. So we'll see you with it. We'll leave you with this, and we'll see you again next week. Until then, bye-bye.
Bye.
Karpov is a wanted man. If you have knowledge of his whereabouts, you're obliged to follow due process under the Constitution.
You mean arresting him? Isa Karpov is indeed seeking to make contact in Hamburg. What a banker.
We've had no briefing on this.
Well, if you were doing your job, you wouldn't need one.
We're not policemen.
We're spies. Isa Karpov may be of value to us. All I'm asking for is more time. Our unit was set up to develop intelligence resources inside Germany's Islamic community. That's why we're here.
Oh. And I thought you were here because you f***ed up in Beirut. And your friend Michael Axelrod had no
This
idea.
banker, do we know what Karpov wants from him?
Not yet, and if we move against him now, the chances are we never will.
I think he knows what he's doing, Otto. Maybe you should let him get on with it.
You have 72 hours to bring this matter to resolution. If not, we will. With or without your cooperation. Okay?
Okay.